Okay, good morning. My name is Lisa Illichmann. I'm sitting here in lockdown in southern Austria, in the south side of the Alps, talking to Sophie, who is sort of sitting in France, and she'll have a few words to say. And we'll be talking today about moving into the unknown and working with not knowing and what how not knowing sort of manifests itself with us and how we can work with that situation. I'm going to hand over right away to Sophie, who will say a few things. The ground rules we have, we're going to try to talk for around 25 minutes and then use the last 5 minutes to really zero in on some ideas how we can use this in our everyday life. So I'm passing on now to Sophie. Good morning, Sophie. Nice to see you today.
Too, and a warm welcome for all people who will join this recording later on. So yeah, opening to the unknown, opening to the question of what is this? And the tendency is usually to seek for an answer. What is this? This is this, this is that. But actually, we rarely think of how does it feel to be in a state of questioning. My teacher used to say, when she was asked, what is the most important word in the question, what is this? And she was always coming up with this. She was saying, the most important word in that question is the question mark. So I'm going to bring up a lot of questions, actually, because this is the idea of opening to the unknown, is to not seek for an answer, but just to be more in contact with this space of not knowing. And from a Buddhist perspective, being confronted to the unknown, I think, is really invite us to meet the reality of impermanence, and also maybe questioning ourselves on how do we define ourselves, how I define myself, who am I? And what could we do with this realization? Because I think we're all facing it right now. We are realizing, being confined at home, that our whole little world, or little comfort zone, everything that give us this kind of illusion that everything is permanent in our everyday life, has suddenly gone. You know, for some of us, we can't go to work. For some of us, we're stuck in an apartment. All that we are used to do is suddenly gone. So we realize that things are not permanent. And underlying, because this questioning, because we have a lot of time now, because we can't really, not getting lost, but we can't, enjoy things that will prevent us from really facing this kind of question, like the question that, will I survive? The question that I am not immortal, that at some point everything could stop. And really, another question is, what is it that will go away? What is it from me that will disappear when I really embrace this truth that things are permanent? And it can be pretty scary, because the first thing that it leads to realize is that there is in some way nothing to really hold on to, because everything that defines us, that define the space we're living in, is impermanent. And that's precisely what we are facing right now. So the question is, how do I define myself? What made me think that I am me, Sophie, right here, right now? And what if I would let go of this? For example, I'm sitting here and I'm talking in front of the computer. I'm discussing about Dharma with Lisa. Lisa is a friend. I'm in France. I'm French. I'm sitting in my home. You know, I may encounter a certain feeling now. I may have certain thoughts. But what if suddenly I realize that this is not what I am? You know, this is because all these things, they are coming and they're passing away. The way I define myself is based on idea I have, all labeling. I am this, I am that, because of this, because of that. No, I define my identity upon things that doesn't last. And I very usually think that I am here right now and Sophie is in this way because in the past I was like that. And because I am here like this now, I may be in such a way in the future. But when we really stop, as I said many times already, where we make pause and we stop, getting lost in the past or anticipating in the future. How does it feel, to be in this space of unknown? And I would like to maybe invite you to do a little experiment right now, that we can really get a sense of what it means to be in contact with the unknown experientially. For example, if you may be sitting at your desk or you may be on your couch lying down watch this video, wherever you find yourself. Can you just, feel maybe your body here, sitting here, lying down, just feeling your body. Maybe feeling the gravity, the weight of your body lying down or sitting. And really maybe realize that this moment you are experiencing right now is absolutely unique. This moment you're living right now, seeing Lisa and I in the screen, hearing the sound of my voice, is a moment that never happened before. And this is a moment that will never happen again. So what you're experiencing right now is unique. And this is what it is to be with the unknown. It's about experiencing what is it. It's about what you feel. How does it feel to sit or to lie down? How does it feel? What is the quality of experience of hearing the sound of my voice? Maybe if you have the eyes open, watching at the screen, how does it feel to experience seeing? And when you're with this space, that you start to experience, you get in touch with things. You are really with the unknown. And really see for yourself in that moment, because you're relating to yourself and this moment in a very different way, not defining yourself from what happened with the past or what will maybe happen in the future. When you don't define yourself for me being French, German, Austrian, whatever, when you don't label yourself, when you do not define yourself through maybe thinking that are arising emotion that are expressing themselves. How does it feel? Maybe you may have a sense of kind of a peaceful uh, presence, very simple, just maybe of just being here and now and meeting this unknown in a safe way, like a refuge. In that space, is there anything to fear? You're just accompanying, you're just with the flow of things that are arising and passing away. There's nothing to be afraid of in that moment. And this is one aspect, this is one way you can really learn to meet with the unknown in a more comfortable way and even take refuge in that. So I don't know if, Lisa, you have a lot to say more about that.
Thank you, Sophie. From your words, the thought that kind of sticks with me the most, the words that touch me the deepest, are the fact of do we really know who we are? And I think as soon as we realize that things around us are impermanent, they won't last, we're seeing the consequences of that reality right now. Things are not the way we thought they were 2 weeks ago. They're much different. And this alludes, of course, to impermanence, to the fact that things are not the way. They will not always remain the same. They change. And then I think what the scary part is we project ourselves into this unknown future with a very fixed idea of identity, of who I think I am. And I think most of us have, I could give you 4 or 5 sheets of paper and ask you to write down who you think you are. And you could write down all sorts of habits and things that you're good at and things that you're not so good at and colors that you like and your favorite foods and all this. And this all seems very fixed and very solid. But if we think back on who we think we really are, if I go back to my very first memories of myself, I guess around 5 or so, I did not have the same thoughts that I have now. And I didn't have the same skills that I have now, and certainly not the same behavioral patterns. And I didn't have the same body. And the same is true as if I think back when I was 10, 12 in this age. It was completely different than 5. And yet completely different than now. And the same thing was true when I began, for example, the university. I remember moving into the dormitory. I was a completely different. I looked different. I thought different. Everything about me was different. But if I look at all of myself in pictures or think back on all these versions of me, the one thing that really remains is that feeling of amness, this feeling that it's me, that there's something within that always kind of remains the same. But the way that body and that mind are always changing. So this I like to call it my avatar. This body and mind that I inhabit at the moment is changeable. And I think the future seems frightening if we see ourselves as this solid, identity, which we're not. We're always changing, and we're just a mess of thought habits and habitual patterns, behavioral patterns that we don't look at. And you talk about finding refuge in that not knowing. And I think the refuge that we can find, and I agree with you totally, that not knowing is the realization that things outside change. And if we can meet it with the equal realization, yes, but I too am not solid, which means that I have every possible way to respond to the situation if I can let go of that fixed identity that I think I have. And maybe with my fixed identity, I don't have the ability, the skills, the knowledge, the peace, or whatever to meet this unknown. But if I let go of that fixed identity, I do. I can meet the unknown. And I have this. The most helpful thing for me is the thought to not close down around this fear, to have this whole body closing in kind of thing that happens around this. Oh my God, it's all, I have no idea what's happening. And this fear that I will not be able to meet the challenge, as it were, because I can't this, that, and the other thing. And if I can let go of that, and letting go of that is opening, is just meeting that fear with such openness. And I have that metaphor that I'm Clark Kent, and every time I get frightened, I run into a phone booth and I take off that fear, and I wear my Superman suit, and I can march into the unknown, realizing that as unknown as that is in the outside world, equally unknown is it within. And this means that it's there. The possibility to respond to this situation is there. The knowledge is there. The skill is there. The peace is there if I let go of who I think I am. I'm going to stop there.
Yeah, I really relate to what you say. And again, in Buddhism, we learn to cultivate different qualities, and I think one of them, when you learn to meditate, that will really help you to open to fear, to open to this new way of experiencing, unknown, not knowing, is about learning, cultivating to ground yourself, learning to come back all the time to an anchor that would suit you. We already talk about this almost every time, but it's so fundamental, because it's like if you see a kind of a raft who is he's on the water, and he's attached to a pillar in the water. So even if there's some waves or whatsoever, the raft will turn around, but will never go away or getting lost, because he's attached to its anchor. So he can go with the flow, wherever, but will never get lost. So that's the idea with cultivating and learning to anchor ourselves in the present moment, with the tool of maybe just coming back, in the breath, coming back to the listening, coming back to the sensation in your bodies, or maybe some exercises of visualization, or maybe saying some certain sentences. It's just to remind yourself to come back to that every time you get lost in thoughts, you get lost in emotion, you go to the past in remembering something, or you project yourself, especially with fear, because fear is about anticipating, is about being already in the future. So really to learn to come back as much as you can, as sometimes 100 times during 1 hour, but and to really believe that in doing so there will be an effect, and the effect is that you get concentrated. It's like suddenly your mind, which usually tends to be everywhere except here, as I said, in the past, in the future, thinking about this morning, thinking of what you're going to do this afternoon, it's like your mind become complete in the here and now. And this has, as I said, an effect of being concentrated. The mind is not fragmented. You become grounded, stable, no matter where they are. You become very stable. And from that space, you can really learn to meet unknown with the fear that may arise from facing that, with stability and ground. And because there is this ground, there will be the ability to get insights, to deepen your understanding of what is going on, because you're not going to be taken away, by whatever that may happen at the surface, whether it's a difficult emotion, whether it's a difficult thought, because there is this ground. So that's why it's so important to really learn to find an anchor that is helpful for you, because as we are all different, for myself, the breath is something helpful, might not be for you. Because for some people, to be with the breath can be a little bit worrying, a source of anxiety. For some people who are tinnitus, for example, I would not recommend to go to the listening meditation. So really, here you have to be curious and experiment, like a game, to see what really helps you, what brings balance. And in doing so, in experiencing that, what you also build up is that you're really caring. You really bring a sense of care towards yourself, to yourself. So again, not to forget, that's really a gift that you're giving.
Thank you. Yes. I think it's very helpful that you again come back to quieting the mind. One of the most skillful activities, although it's not really an activity, one of the most helpful skills that we can develop is helping the mind to quiet all anxiety, all fear, all discomfort arises from mind activity that is either projecting into the future, which is fear-based, as Sophie said, or pulling things out of the past, which will cause things like regret and depression, and or we just take it straight out of the past and project it into the future, which may give us just a mixed cocktail of uncomfortable emotions. It's not helpful. Either we're in the mind or we're in the present moment, basically. And so coming back to the breath, as Sophie said, or choosing any anchor at all to leave the mind, to strengthen the muscle of being in the present moment, is the most helpful skill we can develop. And this time of discomfort that we have in these moments of insecurity and unknown, we tend to go to the mind to find answers, and the mind is not giving us answers. The mind is regurgitating things from the past and throwing it into the future and frightening us and taking away our real base of power. And our base of power is in now, is being grounded in the now, because it's in the now that we find peace, and it's in the now that we find useful and skillful responses to the challenges that are arising. We don't find them in the mind. And so again, like Sophie said, 100 times an hour, 100 times a minute, that we need to notice that we're lost in the mind and return to some aspect of the here and now, which will always be over the sense organs, the hearing or seeing or feeling. And oftentimes it's helpful to use the breath to anchor yourself in this. And developing this skill will help us to peace, and will bring great insight into who we think we are. And by widening that self-definition, even a tiny little bit, the tiniest little bit will allow new behavior patterns, new thought patterns, new ways of reflecting on things, new perspectives. And this will make our life so much more comfortable, exponentially, with every tiny little millimeter that we open up our definition of who we think we are and what we think is happening around us. We open up our ability to respond and to find the innate peace that is always within us. And to be brave. And this is again my Superman suit, to be put on that Superman suit, to be brave, because we need an enormous amount of bravery to face that feeling of not knowing. But in the moment that we faced it, it all becomes okay. The fear is always in the anticipation and the expectations. Sophie, perhaps you'd like, it's 25 minutes, so I'm going to stop myself. And I'd like for you to perhaps take the last 5 minutes to give us some more words of insight about the unknown and about meeting the unknown.
Yeah. I think there is an opportunity in learning again, because it's really about learning. It's about experiencing, it's about getting curious. It's not about finding an answer, because as I said already, when you try to find an answer to something, when you try to find a solution to a question, there is something that is saying that you look at the situation as a problem. And here, this is really not the idea about opening to the unknown. Learning to open to the unknown is about getting in touch, in a very sensitive, in a very sensitized way with the mystery of existence. This mystery that can be felt in yourselves in this very moment. Of how does it feel to be here, to be alive, and to feel, experience this life that is flowing, that make it possible to be conscious, to be breathing, to be hearing, to be tasting, to be sensing, to be seeing. I'm really getting in touch with a sense of miracle toward that. There is something that is kind of magic when we really allow ourselves to get in touch with that. So the unknown has a scary side, but we really can learn to become curious to what it has to say. And instead of really seeing our tendency to try to understand or to want to find an answer, instead of just learning to sit with the question itself, the questioning itself, and to become, like I said at the very beginning, a question mark.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. So, thank you again, Sophie. We close today with that thought of being the question mark and allowing the unknown to remain unknown, and to developing the stability through the present moment of meeting that unknown with openness, with being the question mark, and with very little definition of who you think you are and what you think is happening, and just allowing that kind of to be there. And in the stability of allowing that to be there, we find our responses to the situation. And we become more and more skillful in meeting the challenges of our life. Yeah. And being brave towards the unknown and feeling that joy of life. That's always sort of there. In those scary moments. Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Enjoy your lockdown and your week.
You too.
And see you in a few days again. Thank you.